Hi, I'm Jesse. I'm the general manager of Proper Upkeep, a residential maintenance company.
And I'm Jim Humphrey. I own Twin Cities Leasing. We're a residential property management company here in Minnesota. And Jesse is going to go over something that a lot of people have a question about. It's subsidized housing. How does it work? And specifically, what are we going over this morning?
Just the move-in process.
Okay.
Just how to move in and make sure that you start getting paid.
So if you have any questions about the process, because it is very difficult, Jesse here is going to answer some questions and go through it. It's going to be very educational for anyone looking to apply for subsidized housing.
So you begin subsidized housing just like you do any leasing activity. You just show the property. In your commentary, you want to say that you're open to Section 8 or other subsidies. People show up, they'll ask you that question anyway, even though you have it in your listing, and you say, yes, we're open to it. Then you have them do their background check, again, just like any listing. Once you've approved the applicant, then you get your RFTA, which is a request for tenancy approval, which is a piece of paperwork that the tenant is going to bring you. You can't use a generic form. You need specifically the paperwork they got from their caseworker that with their name on it. You fill that out, you send it back. That triggers in their agency the inspection. So then an inspector is going to come through and do their little checklist. And you want to be present for that inspection because you're going to get stuff on a report that is not a good description of what needs to be done. So we recently had a property where the report came back and it said window does not close properly. I wasn't able to be there because they didn't tell me. They just told the tenant, they showed up, they did the inspection. This was on like a renewal re-inspection, so we weren't expecting it. I show up to take a look at the window and there's an AC unit in the window. To which I think was like, well, of course the window doesn't close properly. There's a machine in it. But so I talked to the tenant because the tenant was there and she tells me that what he meant by window does not close properly is she'd used a towel in the top of the window to seal so the cold air didn't flow back up. Totally reasonable thing to do, but not according to Section 8. So cool, now I understand what needs to be done and we can fix that. But had I not had someone who could communicate at that inspection to be able to tell that to me, I would have not had any idea what they meant by window doesn't close properly. So you get your inspection.
Yeah. Can I time out? Can I ask you a quick question here, Jesse? For the inspections, it sounds like they're kind of subjective. Is that kind of the case, or is there a certain thing that they follow by?
They have a checklist, right?
Okay.
They have the same checklist they do all the time, and it's provided by HUD, right? The federal agency, Housing and Urban Development, has this list of what is livable housing.
Okay.
So they go through their checklist. What each inspector calls acceptable for this checklist provided by HUD, that's a little bit different, right? And what's killer is they'll make different decisions on different inspections. Like it'll pass the first time through, you'll do the required maintenance, and then on the re-inspection they'll flag you on something they didn't flag the first time through.
Okay.
Which that is what makes this whole process infuriating.
Sure.
Is they give you a list, you do it up to what you think they wanted, then they give you a different list at re-inspection.
Yeah.
I personally, on my properties, I have taken that personally. I was like, are they messing with me? Are they trying to do this just because I didn't get along with the inspector or something? And that's not the case. It happens to everybody. Just know that going into it. You're going to get an inspection, you're going to do the maintenance, you're going to get a re-inspection, and then you're going to get another report and have to do more required maintenance. And it's an iterative process until you got all your little boxes checked.
Okay, so you get the inspection, you're there with the inspector
Yep.
ideally, or you have maybe us from Twin Cities Leasing
Yep.
or Proper Upkeep out there for the inspection.
Yep.
And we get a list from the city or the Subsidy housing company.
Yep.
And then we do the re-inspection, it approves, okay, we're all good to go, we've passed the inspection. What happens after we pass the inspection?
That's when you sign the lease. And you don't want to sign a lease before you've done your inspections, because it could turn out that they do the inspection and you get a laundry list of stuff and then you don't want to spend the $4,000 or whatever to bring it up to code. It doesn't usually hit that high. I've seen it hit that high, and had we not waited to sign the lease until after the inspection, we would have been tied into that. We would have been required to provide housing even with that high cost.
Gotcha.
So do your inspections and then sign your lease. Then with subsidized housing, you have an additional document called a contract. And that contract is what tells you how much the agency pays and how much the tenant is going to pay. And that contract amount changes depending on the income of the tenant. So if their income goes up, the agency will pay you less. If their income goes down, the agency will pay you more. right? So you sign your lease with your contract simultaneously.
So let's say the rent's $1,000.
Yeah.
So $500, $700 is paid by the subsidy,
Yep.
right? And then is that evaluated, and then the other 300 or whatever is paid by the resident?
Yeah.
Is that evaluated every 3 months, 6 months, a year? Do you know?
It's evaluated every year,
Okay.
automatically.
Gotcha.
Or if the tenant, say, loses a job,
Mhm.
they'll call the agency and they'll change it mid-lease.
Gotcha.
Right? But,
Okay.
yeah, and you'll get a letter that says, hey, your contract amount is changing. So keep an eye on it, open up those letters and see, because you need to know how much you're supposed to collect from your tenant and how much you should expect in your mail from the agency.
Okay, so that brings up a good question, just to kind of backtrack here.
Yeah.
The residents that are applying for the subsidized housing, do they have a main point of contact? Do they know what they're doing? I know it's like they have to trigger this. Is there any education for them?
No, the education is not great.
Okay.
And so one of the issues that you have is a tenant will show up and they'll say, my subsidy covers $1,400 and rent is $1,400, so I can rent this house. And then you as the leasing agent or you as the landlord have to respond and say, no, your subsidy covers $1,400 minus your utility expenses.
Sure.
So you take off $100 for gas, $50 for electric, $30 for trash, and your subsidy can pay rent of $1,270 or $1,220. And you have to do that education as the person showing the property, because you don't want to go through all of this and then find out that they actually can't pay the full amount of rent that you want.
Sure.
So let them know at the showing, bring your little Section 8 like utility expense calculator with you to show them, because they don't know it offhand.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So we get the lease signed, contract's all good to go.
Then we do a move-in, just like normal,
Okay.
right? Move in, do your move-in inspection with them, all that jazz. Collect your security deposit at move-in, just like you always would. And then you get your guaranteed income after that. And your guaranteed income is why you pay all these dues.
Sure.
So if you weren't doing a Section 8 subsidy, you could jump straight from approve applicant to sign lease, right? And then you skip all of that.
Yeah.
But all of that is what gets you guaranteed income for the entire length of the contract.
Sure.
So that's why whatever the $300 to $1,500 that it's going to cost you to do all that, or the equivalent in your time, is worth it to have that guaranteed income for an entire year.
I love guaranteed income.
Everybody
And
does.
the government's got it, so
Yeah.
very cool. Well, Jesse, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I mean, we've got a lot more to talk about in Section 8. We're going to have a series of videos to cover all of the aspects of renting Section 8 properties. This one is just about the move-in and lease signing and contract and inspection process.
That was very detailed information. Thank you. I look forward to the future conversations.
I'm Jesse with Proper Upkeep. Do all your required work for your guaranteed income. That's a pro tip.